Hello and welcome back everyone to Adobe Live from the sofa here in the UK. I see loads of you are already in the chat. Welcome back, and also welcome to all the new ones. Today we have Marylou in our chat. How are you, Marylou?
Hi, I'm really well, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, good, thanks. And of course we have Emma, our new community manager, co-hosting with me. Hi Emma, how are you?
Hi, I'm very well, thanks.
So if you guys have any questions, pop them in the Behance chat, not the YouTube chat, in the Behance chat, and Emma and I will read them out loud to Marylou. Marylou is an illustrator and artist, right? Introduce yourself.
Yes. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I am a freelance illustrator and artist. I've been working in London for the last 7 years, and I've been freelancing for the last 5 years. I specialize in character design, and I create very bold, quirky, colorful illustrations for different types of projects. It can be for campaigns, it can be for packaging or branding or murals or personal projects. And I'm French. I forgot to mention that at the beginning.
Fellow Frenchie. Based in London, though. So
based in London, yeah. So, and also I got my British citizenship 2 weeks ago. So
congratulations. What a time.
Yeah, I know.
How did you end up in London then? Tell us a bit more about that as well.
So I used to live in London when I was younger with my family. And I moved back to France when I was 14 and lived in Paris for a while. But I always wanted to go back to London. There was something I was missing a bit about the city and the atmosphere. So when I graduated from my school in Paris, I just started I started working in London straight away. And I haven't left since.
So were you working freelance, or was that agency? What kind of experience did you have in London first?
Well, I moved to London and I really didn't know what I wanted to do at all. I was completely lost in terms of...
Like most of us in London.
Yeah, I think it's always kind of the case. So I started the first year by working freelance and doing a few internships. And then by doing that, I realized I wanted to focus on illustration a bit more. So I found a job as a full-time illustrator in a creative agency. And I stayed there for 2 years. And then I made the jump and then I went freelance.
Nice. How was that? What kind of challenges did you have? Yeah, getting started, right? It's always
it's always scary. I mean, I was quite lucky because I was able to go part-time with my agency, because I couldn't see myself financially suddenly going freelance. There was so much uncertainty. So I just went part-time for 6 months with them. And that sort of gave me the confidence to, start working on freelance projects, start approaching the agencies and the brands and the studios I wanted to work with. And it made the transition a bit softer. I mean, the full freelance time after was still a little bit scary, but things picked up pretty quickly, and I was able to make it work financially and to really start my illustration career at that point.
Nice. And do you still have this kind of connection to Paris or the community there, or are you very much kind of involved in the UK London-based community?
I feel like I'm, in that sense, I'm maybe more of a Londoner because I never actually worked in Paris. I don't have any I don't have connections there, or I have my friends there and my family, and it's a city that I love and it's my city and I love going back there, but it's very dissociated from work to me. The only thing I have, which is nice, is that I work with a gallery in Oberkampf. And so this is sort of my link in terms of work, this is my link to Paris. But apart from that, I really established myself in London, and I got to meet a lot of illustrators and creatives here, and obviously worked with, working in an agency for 2 years and then working with clients here. It's meant that my base is really in London.
And whereabouts in London are you based?
I'm in Old Street. So yeah, it's nice. It's handy because most of the creative agencies that I work with they end up never being very far from Shoreditch or Hackney. And it has a nice vibe. It has a nice street art vibe in the area that I really like. Yeah.
Yeah, I live in
nice
the city.
hipster.
not far.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And Adobe is also in East London, so we have
There
a
you go.
strong foothold. Yeah. We have
That's
some people
central.
saying hi. Even some French in the chat. This is great.
Yes.
Loving it. We're doing a bit of revision for everyone watching. Yeah, Catherine saying bonjour, ravi de vous rencontrer.
Bonjour, Catherine.
Kirsty, James saying afternoon. Yeah, kind of, I guess, lunchtime break.
Yeah, it's afternoon.
Robert, great seeing everyone. Excited to get started. So what do you have in store for us today? I mean, you have amazing work. You're really character guru, and I'm so excited to see what you can show today.
Well, I mean, I thought we could just go through a few of the things that I've been working on recently. To start, I thought we could chat about the exhibition that I was just a part of before the lockdown. So the work was seen, but unfortunately, it was only for a couple of weeks because after that, the book club shut. But yeah, I just did like a solo show called À la Piscine at the book club, which is just around the corner on Leonard Street. And I did a set of illustrations that were made into prints and murals and vinyls and
À la piscine, which means at the pool, by the way.
Yeah,
this is the start of the French, basically.
Yeah, exactly. You'll see like little introduction of like little insertions of French in my work quite a lot. Yeah, the idea behind À la Piscine was that because the show was going to launched in March, and it's usually pretty miserable and rainy and grey in London at that time, we thought it'd be a good idea to just do a show that is the complete opposite vibe and is really summery, very like feels like it's really hot and feels like you're just having a glass of rosé near the poolside. So that was the idea behind it. Yeah, which was really fun. I have some photos of the show.
Worth mentioning as well is that you have this kind of female character focus, and that's always seen through your work that you're really focusing on women. And can you also tell us a bit more about where that comes from and what drew you to focusing on that?
Yeah, of course. So it's a bit of a funny one because I started when I went freelance. Well, just a bit before I went freelance, when I was still working at Nice and Serious, which was the creative agency I was a part of. I was really working on developing my style, and I knew I had to work on my aesthetic because I wasn't 100% happy with it. I felt like it was looking a bit too childish. It was looking sometimes a bit too not as modern and as fresh as I wanted it to be. So when I was working on that, I started just working on loads of different personal projects to elaborate my style and to bring my aesthetic towards where I wanted it to be. And very naturally, by doing that, I actually started putting women at the center of my work. But it wasn't really like a decision that I made, but it's just something that came naturally. And I was really inspired by the female body and by representing characters in a very confident way, in a very powerful way, in a very quirky way. And so that's how sort of the female form started having a really important place in my style. And it's something that I'm never getting bored of. And even if I try to illustrate anything else, it just comes back to that. And I think there's a lot of personal link to I feel very personal about my work, and I feel like these characters are actually representing things that mean a lot to me in a personal way, but also in like just a professional way and what they represent. And so that's how they came to life, let's say. These are some of the photos of the show. So I don't know if anyone's been to the book club, but they're really known to do loads of collaborations with artists and loads of exhibitions with different artists where you really can take over the entire space. And so I went to see it with Sky, who's the new art curator for the book club. And I just knew from the beginning that I wanted to paint as much of it as possible, because I really wanted to bring my color palette to the coffee place. And so we ended up, I had a team of 4 girls with me. Actually, I probably have a photo. And we just spent 3 days painting the whole thing. This was one of the
Whole
process.
experience.
Yeah, it was really fun. And actually, I don't have that much experience painting, but it's something that I really want to get into because it's such a nice break sometimes from being in front of the screen all the time. So this was really refreshing because it was just very manual, and there's something really nice about it. So this was part of one of the murals that was done, and then I had a really nice team.
What is your usual process? Do you first sketch on paper, or do you start digital and then you project it on the wall, or?
So for murals, then yeah, definitely I had for the murals I had done a mock-up of, actually I can probably show you, I did a mock-up of the area, and so I knew where things were going to be, and which area was going to be painted, which ones were going to be prints, and basically that's how I laid it out. And then I had done the final illustrations before I did the paintings, and so then all I had to do was just project the artwork, trace it, and then paint it by hand. I actually can show you some of the process of how I do my work, which is so first it's a very rough sketch that will happen.
It's like being in your brain, like what you're imagining.
So this is basically just like the first idea. When the first idea comes to my head, it's just a very rough sketch. So this was for one of the murals. And then once I have that and I have an idea of the composition, I'll do a cleanup sketch that will have way more details, and that will really structure the composition. This is really where most of my work goes. It's the phase that takes me the longest, and the sketch is actually, for me, it has to be very clean, very neat, because if I try to do an illustration in colors where the sketch is a bit rough, then it ends up not looking as good, or it just takes me way longer to do it. And then this was the color version, and then this was the end result with the murals. So it's that's my usual process. And I think
women are usually depicted alone in your work, right? Do you ever have like bigger groups, or is that something that's really like personal to you?
Yeah, I feel I used to draw women, multiple characters together, but throughout the last couple of years, they've been by themselves a bit more. I think it's because I got a bit more inspired by sort of the intimate aspects of my characters, and actually them being in their personal space and their own world. And for that, it was important that they were by themselves, and that it wasn't, a part of a community, but it was like a very intimate and personal moment where you sort of see them in their intimacy. And so that's how it's sort of then they became by themselves. But it's okay, they're fine with it. And this is another rough sketch. Well, yeah, it's just the same process. But
do you then project this on the wall, or?
I will project. This is what I projected, and then I just traced it, and then I painted it.
So what is the difference between drawing on paper and on a wall? What's the challenge with it?
The scale, I think, is the biggest difference, because my sketches, they're usually on like little notebooks like this. Like maybe the biggest one are going to be these. But it was funny actually, because I was listening to Kellyanna talking about her sketches with you guys, and she was saying how she used much bigger canvas because it meant that her movement had more freedom, which I completely understand. But my process is completely different. Actually, I was told to draw quite small by my school, because they always said that you needed to do a sketch that was working even very small, where you still got the essence of the composition, even if it's like a sketch that's big like this. So every time we started a live drawing, we had to do a sketch that was like, 5 centimeters high, and it had to sort of be correct in the aspect ratio and everything. So I kind of kept that as a process. So the difference when you're drawing on a wall is, obviously then the movement is completely different. You have this freedom in your gesture that you don't as much on a little sketchbook. So it's a different process. And I actually really enjoyed that as well, because it feels a bit more how do you say, natural and I guess a bit more not random, but I don't know. There's more space for freedom in the sketch, which is nice.
And
there's already some interest in the, there's some interest in the chat. We have Anna Curvello who's saying, woo, Marylou, who's saying hi. And just some general compliments on your, on the wall effort and coloring and bringing your work to life, which from Sarah, which is really nice to hear.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, just a couple of people complimenting and being interested in your sketching process. So nice to hear.
Are the frame pictures that you showed, are they prints or are they also paintings?
No, they're prints. So they're GK prints that we just had a foam backing on it. I didn't want a frame because I wanted it to be as seamless as possible between the color of the wall and the prints, so that it was still in the sort of the same world and it didn't feel like it was just a framed artwork on a wall, but more something that lived together nicely with the space. And then there's some which are vinyls, which is something that I explored a little bit during another exhibition that I did last year, which I can show you quick, which was called Nobody's Baby. And for this, I didn't paint. I'm not really sure why. Maybe it's because they didn't want me to, or I can't remember, but maybe it was a timing thing. But instead, we had these this is the problem with iCloud though. Everything's needs to be downloaded. I might actually have some pictures on Instagram. But for this, it was a different process. I got together with Puck Collective, Puck Studio, and they do these really amazing vinyls that they place, and so we had a huge one. It's not loading. Sorry, my internet has been a little bit upset since the lockdown.
Squeeze in a question in the meantime. Danielle is asking, what program do you use for your illustrations?
So I will do the sketches just on a notebook. I will do part of my illustration on Photoshop, and I will also use Illustrator when it comes to animation, because I work with animation teams quite often, and for them it's easier to have a file that's vectorized. So in those cases, I'll do the illustration on Illustrator, and also I always do my first illustration at a certain scale. I try to make it big, but I always, kind of forget that it could potentially be bigger. So I use Illustrator a lot to image trace and vectorize my work so that it can be used as pretty big, which has been happening way more often lately, where the client comes to you with an illustration that's going to be for like the cover of a magazine, but then they come back to you a month later and they say it's going to be for like a huge poster, and you're like, okay, well, I need to make this work. So I use different softwares, but I'll always finish my composition and everything on Photoshop, and I'll use Illustrator for animation.
Interesting. So it's not loading.
No, but I saw in there we talked about the murals as bringing your work to life, but you also have those figurines, which are amazing to see. And I'd love for you to talk a bit about how you prototype that. And it just seems like such a great way to bring it in 3D and have this kind of tangible feeling.
Yeah, that was a really, really exciting project. So basically a couple of years ago, I really wanted to see how my work could look in 3D. I had seen some examples from other artists, including Para, who's a big influence and someone that I really admire. And I saw one of his figurines, and I thought his work worked so well in 3D that I wanted to see how mine would look. So I got in touch with a 3D designer called Nicola Strada, who's based in Italy, and he started working on. I sent him some sketches. These were the sketches that I sent him of one of the characters, and I was like, okay, this is one of my girls. This is the color palette, and I'd love to see how she would look in 3D. And so he started working on. Well, he worked on a few renders, and we had a bit of back and forth. It's funny because, he had such a great interpretation of my character. He's really talented. But there's it takes so little for me not to recognize my work anymore. So I was like, no, like the waist is too thin, or like the hair needs to be more bubbly, but it was tiny, but for me it made such a big difference. But he was incredible. And so we ended up with this render. And well, actually there was one done previously, but this is one of the most recent one. And I thought, it worked really nicely. So I had a friend actually who had a 3D printer, and he printed this for me. So that was the first design. She's been banged a couple of times because that was like three years ago. But so that was the first prototype, and I was like, okay, I think this works nicely. So I found a manufacturer in the UK, and we started working on creating her. So these are some of the photos.
So when are you selling these, or?
Yeah, so I sold. I made the first one as part of the Nobody's Baby show, and I only made 2 big ones, and then one of them was sold. And I was like, okay, well, this is it. This is enough of a reason for me to go and produce them a bit more at a higher scale. It's a bit scary because I was doing this by myself, so I was financing this by myself, and they're not cheap. And I was like, okay, well, do I risk it, and will people buy it? And I figured, well, you know what, let's just go for it. And worst case scenario, I'll have like 50 figurines in my flat, and I'll have to
find someone, friends and family, just
exactly. Yeah,
someone will take it.
At least a few. Someone will take it. So we went to see the manufacturer in Ascot, and they were awesome. It was really nice because they really allowed me to be part of the process. I came to choose the paint. Actually, I have this one is the white one, and they did just a really good job at respecting the prototype that we had made, and the result was amazing. So the white one has a bit of an iridescent shine. So this is me picking how shiny she needs to be.
How big were the first ones that you did? You said you did 2 that were quite big.
The first one they were about 30 centimeters tall, so like maybe about like that. So it felt quite different than these ones. These ones feel really like a desk decoration. I'm actually potentially doing a very big one for a show, which would be very exciting. It would be based on this design, which is a recent one. It's only a crop because I'm not allowed to show too much. So, but I'm really bad at keeping things like secret or low key. I'm always like, look, and then like people are like, well, no, you're not supposed to share it. So anyway.
A sneak peek. That's how you get people interested.
Yeah, exactly. Well, half of my feed are like sneak peek, and then they end up not even being sneak peek. It's just the entire illustration shown. But I don't think I can. I can't control myself. But so she's going to be potentially quite big, like a few meters wide.
Okay, wow.
Yeah, for a show. So we'll see how that goes. But it was supposed to run in June, but obviously it's going to be delayed. But it leaves us a bit more time to make it perfect. So that's good.
Jonathan is asking, what are they made from?
They're made from resin. So they do a masterpiece for me to approve that I'll see, and then once that's done, they use a silicon mold they create a silicon mold, and then they pour resin, and then they paint it and add gloss and varnish at the end, which makes them like super shiny, which was a big important point for me because they needed to look very bubbly and shiny and kind of ready to pop like the render, which how
do you choose your colors?
So colors it was a big exercise when I started freelancing as well, because I was actually really uncomfortable with colors when I was working when I was studying at Penningen. It was something that we had so many painting classes, and I could see everyone mixing and matching their colors so well, and I was just like, I don't know how to do this. So for a long time I was only working in black and white purely for that reason. But then when I started developing my style before going freelance, I knew that I needed to have colors, and I needed to sort of get over that fear of colors that I had. And so I tried loads of different color palettes, and then I figured that actually when there were less colors, but they were more vibrant, it worked better and it made the work look more graphic. And having black and white as, 50% of the artwork was also something that made the work pop out and be more contrasted. So that's how I sort of established how I wanted my color palette to be. It still evolves though, like they're always very vibrant and very bright, but I try to play around with different colors because it feels, it's just nice to experiment a little bit and not always do the same thing. But yeah, it was a hard process though, and I had to fight with. I had so many color palettes that I worked on, and I was like, this is not good. But you have to sort of continue until you find something that suits your aesthetic, which can be a bit hard, but it's worth doing. And then,
yeah, we have a lot of questions on that as well, and the kind of process of prototyping. Lizzie's asking if you designed the sculpture's packaging as well, and how long it took from the process of first contact to your first sale.
Okay, so the packaging was actually done by my husband. He's a graphic designer, so very, very handy.
What a team!
I know. So he was really excited about the figurines as well, and so very naturally, I wanted him to do the packaging because this is not something that I'm good at all, and I didn't want the packaging to be illustrated or anything like that. I wanted it to be as sort of neat and clean as possible. Also because of the production cost, I had to put the price range higher than what I wanted to initially. But since I wasn't producing hundreds of figurines and I was producing them in the UK, so the cost is a bit different. I had to have the price range quite high, so I wanted the packaging to look really professional and something that people would keep as well, which actually a lot of people have, and it's nice to see that they're keeping the box as well. And the process, so I had the model done in June, which that only took maybe 3 weeks between when I contacted Nicolas again, and by then he had done a few renders for me, so he knows exactly, he gets it right very easily. And I contacted Atom in June, and I started selling the figurines beginning of October. So that was the process, knowing that I went to the manufactory a couple of times and I wasn't in a particular rush. I just wanted to, it was a nice process for me to do this and to take time to do it correctly. So maybe we could have done it quicker, but yeah, it ended up taking, 4 months in total.
And do you have any of the packaging lying around, or would that be?
Robert is asking, can we see the packaging, please?
Okay, all right. Let me have it. I'm going to be right back.
That's the beauty of Adobe Live from the sofa. You're at home.
We want to see more and more.
You should have everything at home.
Your house tour.
No, but this is nice. I just got a new furniture which has all my prints and all my products inside, which I've been very excited about. This is like the highlight of my month, and so I've been reorganizing my whole flat with it, and so now it's much easier. Otherwise, it would have taken me 10 minutes to find that box, but it's been a bit of a reorganization. So I don't have the pink one anymore because they sold out, and we didn't keep our box because actually, maybe we kept our box somewhere. That I have no idea where it is. These were printed and they were made by Dot Studio. They're a printer based in London, and they're absolutely amazing. They have they're perfectionists, and their eye for detail is just beyond anything I've ever seen. They ended up having to make 50 boxes in such a short amount of time, and I was very grateful for their commitment to this project. Wait, sorry. So this one, I'm gonna open it. Okay. So basically, I don't know how much you'll see because it's a lot about the details, but
the little shine, yeah.
It's like a foil print, and Amazing. It's also been debossed, so it has a bit of a depth to it. It's called Daydream. So yeah, it was done really nicely, and then basically you'd have the figurine lying here.
Brilliant. I feel like you're doing another reveal for us. You had to open all of this and give us more sneak peeks. Looks great. Really nice. Everyone's
that
loving
was
it.
a really nice. Yeah, it was he did an excellent job. It's Byron, in case anybody's interested.
Jonathan is saying that we're getting one of those unboxing videos.
Yeah,
like
exactly. Yeah,
the YouTube craze.
And Catherine is asking if you're going to do outdoor sculptures, and in Board Hill, West Sussex, there would be a sculpture park.
Oh, so yes, I want to do more sculptures. This one, she's definitely on the list of the next ones that I want to do. And there's also another design. It's a bit different. I wanted to try something in a bit of a different vibe, because I wanted something maybe also quite different from the two previous ones that I had done. So she's also one of the ones that I'm considering, and potentially a little bit bigger. But I'm trying to see, because it's a long process. I want to make sure that it's the one that I really believe in. But yeah, I think I'm going to do a few more. It's just really nice, because also as an illustrator, and because I have a style that's very defined, I do end up doing a lot of the same thing, and I like it, because that's why I'm doing it. But it's nice to see something different, where suddenly your work is made into something physical and in volume, and it's a bit refreshing, because you get to see your work in a different way. And it's really nice to collaborate with other creatives as well. It's something that I really enjoy doing.
Has it changed your style in a way, seeing your figures in 3D?
I think it hasn't had an impact so much on my style, but now when I know I want to do another figurine, I will sketch it out very differently to the first thing that I sent to Nicola the first time. I would really think of it as something that has volume, which is an exercise that I didn't usually do. So yeah, it's changed my process on how to create one.
Where do you usually get your inspiration from, and where do you take your inspiration at the moment?
I use Instagram a lot. Actually, I can show you I'll just save any things that I've seen that I like, which is very common. And I'm really inspired by fashion photography. I think there's always something quite interesting in the pose and in the layout that sometimes they have, and it's a good inspiration for attitude as well, which is something that I really like to represent through my work. Is my characters have a lot of confidence, and they have something. But I try to have them something to portray, like an emotion or a sentiment, and so seeing model poses, it will sort of reflect that same, sometimes that same feeling. So it's something that's quite inspiring. If I go on my saves, like this is the kind of thing that I save. So it's a lot of
mood board.
Yeah, it's like a little mood board. And
nice.
Sometimes it'll just be because of some of the colors, or sometimes it'll be because there's like an element in the photography that I think is interesting, like those flowers, or it'll just be the contrast of the attitude or the glitter, or so that's something that I always do, like very naturally. I'll just scroll my Instagram and I'll just save some of the recent things I've seen that I think are inspiring.
Talking about Instagram, I read that when I was doing a bit of digging, that one of your projects was to do geo stickers with Instagram, that you had a custom, beyond all the projects you've had that have been amazing. I think that one's quite also a really great other kind of format for you, right?
Yeah, it was really interesting. Yeah, at some point, a couple of years ago, 75% of my work were creating stickers. There was like a sticker fever in the world, and for some reason, once I started doing a set, then it made other brands and other people want to set a set for themselves, which was great. And Instagram were one of them. It was a geolocation for London, which is nice as well. I like that I'm involved on projects representing the UK as well as representing France, because it feels like an accomplishment, since I've been a part of the London community for 7 years. So it's nice that it's reflected in the projects that I get. But yeah, so at some point, actually I have this on my website, because there were so many sticker projects like I did a page. Whoops, that's my calendar. We don't need to know when my friends' birthdays are. So we did actually like a sticker page. So these were all the ones that I had done. It started with a set for Google. They wanted a set of stickers that were reflecting like bad mood or like just sort of bad attitude. I can't remember what it's called, but it was really fun. And it was the first time I had to work on a sticker set. And it's really interesting because it's completely different process, because you have to make them work so small and it has to be instant. If you don't understand the emotion or the message, people are going to scroll and not be interested. So it was quite an interesting exercise to grab people's attention very quickly. I still can't believe some of the ones they agreed on. Like I have a cat that's about to hang himself saying boring, and that was approved, amazingly enough. But yeah, it was really fun.
And it's nice that you went into typography as well a little bit, right? And moving away from the only character design.
Yeah, well, I used to actually do way more typography and handwritten. The calligraphy was something that I really enjoyed when I was studying. But so that was really handy to do sticker sets. And it's something that I've stirred away a bit more recently. I mean, I've tried to reintroduce it in a way that fits my style a bit more. So it's because it's still something that I really enjoy. But it's just using it in a bit of a different way. But these were the ones for Instagram, Hampstead Heath and Buckingham Palace and Hyde Park. So yeah, it's calmed down now, the stickers. I think there was a wave and then and then people got over it.
But I heard you're now going into skateboards as well, which is first in line for one of those. I said before we started. That's brilliant as well.
The skateboards, it's a funny one. It's just my husband skates, and he's been asking me for a skateboard for the last 2 years, and I've been like, yeah, I'm gonna do it. And then there was a lockdown, and I was like, okay, I'm actually gonna do it. I'm gonna just order some decks online, and I'll see. I can show them to you. Actually, I've got them here. And so
props. We love this.
I've got everything here. This has become like a little studio.
Studio in itself.
So this was the first one, the second one that I did. It's part of a series that is for Woodbury House. So it's like an exhibition. I don't know how to show this one. It's an exhibition that I'm doing with them. Well, hopefully this summer or maybe this autumn, called Blossom. And so I did these crop, like tighter illustrations of like details of the body part. And I thought, the colors and sort of the vibe of it could work really well on a skate. So I started with this one. So I just painted it and then I varnished it. And then this is the last one I've done. I just finished it yesterday, but I haven't varnished it. And then, I was just like, oh, you know what? I've been doing this for a week. So I'm just going to share it. And so I shared this photo on Instagram, and I got really, really nice comments and people were really into it. So I figured, okay, so this is actually quite interesting. And there's maybe, potential interest for people to get one. So I'm chatting to a production company about having them made like really nicely as a proper skate, because the only issue with the painted ones is that, with the varnish, it's maybe not exactly as neat as I'd like it to be. And I'd like to have a bit more variety possible with the decks, because I know that it makes a big difference. So maybe some variety in sizes, but so it's been really fun. I'm hoping to have them really soon.
We have a couple of questions here in the chat. Sarah is asking, have you considered making comic strip stories with your characters?
Yeah, well, no, actually, I've never considered it. It's not. It's something that I'd be interested in, but I've never had the opportunity to do it, and I'm not exactly sure how I would do it. Like, I've seen other illustrators doing it so well, and having it really witty and funny, and I think there could be something in it. But I feel like maybe I would need to collaborate with someone with like an idea of like stories or like theme, and maybe see how we could do that. But it could be fun. there's definitely like something to do there, but I'm just not exactly sure where I would start. So it could be fun.
And Lizzie is asking, do you use any other programs during your process for organization, project management, mood boards, etc.?
So I mainly use my calendar, and then I'll use my emails. My emails are really the biggest thing that I'm organize myself with, because I'm only going to keep the highlighted emails out there, and they are my priority on my to-do list. So that's how I sort of organize what needs to be done first. And I always have like an hour in the morning and maybe half an hour in the evening where I sort out my emails and I make sure that I, didn't miss anything. And then I'm very old fashioned and I just work with these kind of these just posted there everywhere. Every week I have to like throw like 20 of them, and I haven't even scratched half of them, but it's just my way of putting sort of my planning written somewhere. But I would like to maybe use something that helps me be a bit more organized, because I am always a little bit worried that I'm going to miss out on something. But mainly calendar and my emails.
And a similar question to the first one, Puppetry Studio is asking, are you going to animate your figures in the future?
Well, I really love having my work animated. It's not something that I do. I wanted to become an animator studying, but then I did a 6 months Erasmus in Bournemouth where I studied animation, and I realized that I was not patient at all. And something that I like about my work is that I can have it done, as quickly as I can, and the end result is there fairly quickly. But I have worked with animators before, loads of them, and it's something that I really enjoy. I did these stickers for YouTube actually, and they were animated by this guy called Stefano Meazza, and they're really fun. And it's such a nice thing to see your work. It's completely transformed, and he had his own interpretation of how the characters should be as well. So it's nice to have. It feels more like a nice collaboration. This one was really fun.
So what were these used for in the end? What was the...
So they were for these, they were called super stickers, and they were for YouTube. It was a way to sponsor the YouTubers that you follow. So you would pay for a sticker, and you would send like this encouraging message. The set was called Biggest Fan. And so the idea is that you're sending a sticker that's supporting them, and also you're paying, $3 towards their YouTube channel. So yeah, they were really fun.
And someone was asking if you ever went towards male figures, and we chatted a bit about this in the beginning, but did you attempt a bit of kind of male character design?
Well, the thing is, I do sometimes have male characters. It's fairly rare, so fair enough. But I think I'm just drawn towards female characters because there's just something about the female body that I find more inspiring, and because also I'm a woman, so very automatically and personally I'm more drawn to that. But at the end of the day, because what I mainly want people to get from my work is more of the attitude and the message and the emotion, I felt like it wasn't a problem to focus on female, because at the end it's more about the message and the attitude, and anyone can relate to my characters. They look a certain way, and I don't look like them, but I can still relate to how they feel, and it's just more of like the feeling that they portray than what they look like.
Yeah, and this was a question this was a question from Hillary, actually. That's the one I forgot to mention, because she's saying your work reminds me of Matisse's paper collage of women.
Oh, well, that's really very nice, flattering. Yeah. It's definitely a big inspiration. So it's always nice to hear that.
And we have Lizzie asking, what varnish do you use to coat the boards?
That is a very good question. I'm not sure which one in particular. It's on the balcony right now. It's just one that I bought from the art shop around the corner. Do you remember what's the name of the varnish that we got for the skateboard? No idea. I can probably reply to that once I've been on my balcony and I can tell you the name or the brand of it.
So how does it feel to paint on a skateboard compared to painting on a wall?
It's very different because it really feels like you're creating an object and a product than just doing a painting for the sort of purely the visual aspect of it. It's interesting to see it as something that could be used for something completely different. And it's just about changing that product into something artistic. It's a really nice exercise.
Do the colors behave differently on the different surfaces?
Yeah, and it's harder to find. I'm so used to having my color palettes all done, on my color library, and I just have to pick them and then it's done. And with painting, it's obviously very different. You have to really be careful. I did one painting and I realized halfway through that the red was actually not at all my type of red and it wasn't working. So you have to test a bit more and see how the paint dries and how it reacts to wood and paper, and it'll be very different. So,
and James is asking if it's hard to decide when you decide when your design is complete. You can fiddle and fiddle. When do you step away and decide that you're happy with your design?
Yeah, that's really hard as well. I actually have that more during my sketch phase than my color phase, because if the sketch phase is really where the balance needs to be right and where the composition needs to be right, and it's where I'll really play around with the shapes, have some shapes sticking out, have some contrast between curve shapes and sharp shapes, and all of that process is during the sketching. And it can be very frustrating when you have something in your mind and it just doesn't work when you're trying to do it. It's not exactly how you see it. But I really feel like there's definitely a moment where I can see it's working and I can stop. Like I can really feel it. And if I try to stop too early, then usually then I'm not going to be happy with the final work. But it can be, sometimes I really feel like I'm fighting with my illustration and I need to and I can see that it could be good, but it's just not there. So it's just about trying to understand what's not working, and also accepting that sometimes the illustration is simply not going to work, and there's something about the composition or the balance that isn't there, and try something else. But it's hard because I'm really stubborn and I don't like to give up on an illustration.
Perfectionist as well. That's great to hear.
Yeah.
But something we didn't talk about yet, or we touched a bit on, is also the fact that you're very interested in having a social and ethical cause tied to some of your work. And I know you did some work for International Women's Day and different causes, which is would love to hear about as well.
Yeah. So that came about because the creative agency I was a part of, Nice and Serious, they focused on sustainability, environmental, social, ethical issues, and that all of our projects were about that. So when I left and suddenly, my projects were about something else, I felt a bit bored, and I was like, oh no, that's not really what I want to talk about. That's not what I want my work to be a part of. I really like the fact that there's a core message that's important and that it's about issues that I believe in. So I really started to work pro bonos on campaigns, and I submitted my work on poster designs for environmental issues, and I just started getting involved in these kind of things. And so very naturally then, because I was showing that on my portfolio and I was sort of saying that I wanted to do things that had a core message that was positive, or that was fighting for things that I believe in, it led me to then get client projects which had a similar core message. And so it's really nice because it's really led my work towards projects that are about things that I feel strongly about. So it's a nicer feeling. And I felt, if I can work on projects that are purely about making a business earn more money, then I can definitely work on projects that are helping out charities do something impactful. And then I think also because very naturally women were at the center of my work, it's meant that I'm working on projects that are, putting women in the spotlight at the same time. I did this project for Nike, and it was about, and I've been working with them quite a lot recently, and it's always something to do with promoting female athletes and women in sports, and trying to put a bit more attention to, the Women World Cup football, the netball World Cup, and things that unfortunately get less views because because it's women playing, unfortunately. But it's getting much better, and I feel like there's a lot of brands that are trying to focus their attention on showing that actually it's just as interesting, and it's amazing to watch, and these athletes are incredible. So yeah, I think it's just led, and the more you do something in a style, the more projects you'll get that are similar. So it's about kickstarting with projects that have a social core, that have a positive message, and it leads you to do more projects like that.
Yeah, I saw you did some work for London Pride as well.
Yeah, which was really fun as well. It's always a bit hard. It's always hard also to not work with anyone who's sometimes can be just using a movement or a cause as just a way of promoting their brand or their business. So I had, at some point, I was getting a lot of people who were contacting me about the Pride, and I really had to put them in different categories of, do I actually believe that they're doing this for something good, or is it purely just marketing stunt, and it doesn't really have that much meaning. And you can really tell quite easily because the way the brief will be done, it will be quite clear. So it's something to be a bit careful about sometimes, but it's something that I really enjoy.
We have a question from Lizzie. She's asking on your Instagram, what percentage of posts are personal work versus paid work?
It will really vary depending on what I've been doing. Because there's times where I finish projects for clients, and I'm going to have a few weeks where I'm just going to be doing personal work or playing around with personal series. But I would say probably it still comes back to about 60% personal, maybe 65% personal, 35% client, because I don't share all my client work. I really want to be happy with the end result. And sometimes, throughout the feedback, and there's just a bit too many changes along the way, that means that I am not as happy with the end result, even though I understand it's to fit a brief. So it just means that maybe I won't share it on my social. So that means that then, and I work a lot on personal series. I'm obsessed with doing work for myself. It's something, even when I'm busy with client work, I'll still take like a day a week to do some personal work, because I have so much fun doing it that I feel much better once I've done that.
And Jonathan is asking, have you thought of drawing animals?
I used to, but I could never find a way to draw animals without making them look a bit childish. And because it was something that I was
he's saying would be great for kids.
Yeah. No, I think the thing is, because I tried quite quickly, I tried to steer my work away from looking childish, because some of the comments that I were getting from clients were that they were afraid that my work was too childish for the kind of projects that I wanted to work on. And so I sort of made the decision to then make my work a bit more adult, so that I wouldn't be getting those comments, and I could work on the projects that I was interested in. And so I steered away from animals, unfortunately. Maybe I can find a way to I did make a few sexy panthers, but so maybe that could come back.
Right, but someone is asking about Charlie.
Oh, Charlie! Oh my God, Charlie!
Somehow they know. Everyone knows about your dog.
I think I've been a bit too on it on social media.
Aww. Oh my God! We had a bit of a pet theme with Tony last week, so we're just on it.
But Tony only showed us pictures. You're showing us the 3D.
I'm showing you the actual dog, and he was sleeping, so he's just like, "What's happening?" This is Charlie. He's
Moment
2,
of fame.
And he's a very good
tired.
Boy. He's tired because he ran too much, and he's wondering what's happening. Yeah,
have you ever drawn Charlie before?
I haven't, and I feel very ashamed of that, because I have had a few people asking me if I had, and I think it's kind of the same thing as I've never drawn my friends or family before. I've never drawn anything that's a bit too personal and linked to my own world. I feel it's harder to draw correctly. Maybe because I feel like I'll never get them right. So no, I haven't drawn Charlie. Maybe one day.
Really, the cat that we had was the only thing I've ever drawn in my life. For me, it's the other way around. Because it was easy when we were at uni, and the cat was just always lying there, so I could study how the light falls and all this stuff. Because she was there, and then
it's the perfect life subject.
And she moves whenever she moves, so I can't tell her stay still. So you have to adjust, and that's how I learned during university. But yeah.
Well,
she passed away.
He'd be a great model because he just lays there and stays still and sleeps half the time. So maybe I'll do a series on Charlie.
Charlie fans out there. Was there any final projects you wanted to mention, Marylou, as we're nearing up our time? So if there's anything else you had in store.
Well, I've been working on a book with Counterprint actually, and it was funny because before the lockdown, there was a few projects that were lying around. I had exhibitions and talks and stuff. So I messaged John and I was like, I think it's going to be taking a bit longer than we thought. And then the lockdown happened and everything got postponed or canceled. And I was like, okay, I've got loads of time. And now we're basically almost done with the content, with the forwards and everything. So I'm very excited about that. And hopefully it'll come out this summer, and it'll just be like a summary of some of my recent work. And a bit about my process and the kind of message that I want to give through my artwork. That'll be very exciting.
Sounds like an exciting year ahead. Stephanie, any final words? There's also a compliment for Charlie and Richard saying that Charlie would look great in 3D. So,
very true.
And Chris just said Charlie is already 3D. So. We've now started a whole conversation on what 3D is.
There's going to be a debate about this now.
Have you ever tried building your own sculptures in 3D with any material?
No, I haven't. And it's something that I would like to try out because I used to do like ceramic when I was a kid, and it's something that I really enjoyed. And I did a giant Obelix and Asterix, which I was extremely proud of when I was like 12. So maybe I could give that another go. I'd like to try it out. I like the idea of also myself modeling and seeing how it feels like and look like. And I think it could be a helpful process to creating them, having some made after.
And also I wanted to ask, how do you come up with the proportions of your figure, and did you learn the classic one like everybody learns at art school, and then afterwards how did you develop your proportions of your style?
Yeah, I learned the classic, like the head needs to be 1/7 of the body, etc., and all of that. And I think that really did help me understand the human body, and nude classes, sketch classes were my favorite because there were loads of different body types, and I thought it was really interesting to understand what made them and how you could easily recognize them by getting the proportions right. But then having that as a base, I then played around with my own characters who would have distorted features and then I just but you can get that wrong very easily, and if it sort of needs to be exaggerated but still kind of right at the same time, so it doesn't look completely unbalanced. So yeah, it's something that I played around quite a bit, and then now I just have fun with completely exaggerating some features. Because my characters don't have eyes, I have to give them a personality throughout in different ways. So it's going to be in their pose, it's going to be in the size of their hands and how they're placed, it's going to be about their attitude. So it's also then easier and funnier to play around with having giant hands and a giant bum to give them some character.
Is there a reason why they don't have eyes? Why you've decided to focus on nose and lips?
Well, I felt like when I gave them eyes, then the whole focus was on their face, and I wanted to give them attitude throughout their whole body. And so I sort of started playing around with hiding their eyes with their hair, and I realized that I thought, in my view, it made them look stronger, and also because I'm revealing so much about them, that I thought it was interesting to hide the eyes, because it would keep a bit of mystery and a bit of personal intimacy to them by not revealing their expression, and have their expression show somewhere else.
Yeah, we've pretty much come up to time, haven't we, Emma?
Absolutely. Well, thanks, everyone. Everyone
Yeah,
in the
that
chat's
was really
very
fun.
happy. Thanks for tuning in today. It's our daily lunch break session here on Behance. And merci, Marylou. Thanks,
Yeah, pas de
Charlie.
quoi.
You know, there's such a sense of positivity and just great energizing vibes in your work. So it was great having you today.
No, thank you so much for
Um,
having me. It was really fun.
Not at all. And as always, Stephanie and I are here chatting away with the UK creative community every day, 12 to 1, and want to hear all your thoughts and questions here in the chat. So see you all tomorrow for some more. Bye, everyone.
See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye.